we ask a lot of questions. And perhaps one of the most common questions that we ask is, how are you doing? Of course, when we ask that question, what we anticipate hearing is good or fine. Doing all right, thanks. We expect this interchange to be brief, a way of just acknowledging someone's presence and of theirs acknowledging back. We don't anticipate it being a prolonged conversation, oftentimes, but rather short. Although over the course of the last couple of premarital counseling sessions, I've been having some fun as the couples come in and sit down at the table and start talking a little bit about what's happened in their day or what's happened most recently. And then they get this little smile on their face. They look at one another and say, "Now you're going to ask us, how are we doing?" And you're not going to take fine for an answer. Rather, it is meant to be an opening into something much deeper. And so they start sharing what has happened over the last week or the last couple of weeks. What has been life-giving and exciting? What has been challenging? And where do they see things going over the course of the coming days and weeks as they continue to prepare for the big day? That question, how are you doing? Really? It calls us to go more deeply into who we are and what is happening in our lives. In much the same way, Jesus asks a question today that isn't meant to be thrown out as a one-answer sort of thing. It's meant to be part of a conversation when he says, "Who do people say that I am?" Now, the disciples and those who are following, they want the short answer. They want this to be a one-and-done sort of thing. Well, some say you're John the Baptist. Done. Others say, well, you're Elijah. Done. Still others just simply say, you're like one of those prophets. Enough of that. Let's move on. And that's when Jesus stops and turns to this trustworthy disciple who sometimes gets it right and says, "Simon Peter, who do you say I am?" What is your answer, really? And Simon Peter says, "You are the Messiah." The Messiah. But Jesus still isn't happy with leaving it at this short answer. Rather, he begins one of his expositions about what this means for him, what this means for humanity. That when you call someone something, give them a title, a purpose, a vocation, we have to understand a little bit more about what it is, really. Now, as Jesus gets going, he begins to talk about this role of Messiah. They can see what he's doing. He's been teaching. He's been healing. He's been lifting people out of the depths of despair. He's been bringing new life to those on the margins, including women who are of Syrophoenician origin and their children. He has been reaching out, breaking boundaries, calling people into new ways of being. They could see that. But now, what does it mean for them to say that he is Messiah? So he begins to talk about what is yet to come. There's going to be suffering. There's going to be death. And then there's going to be a new reality. A new promise, a new life. Simon Peter has been concerned in the different Gospels about keeping Jesus focused on what is ahead and not naysaying or lifting up the negative stuff. Let's focus on what brings people together, what gets the 1,000 people excited and rallied. Let's sing another praise song to God. Let's have fun and take all the kids to big lock-ins where they can have lots of pizza and soda and maybe some bread on the hillside. Maybe they can even slide down on carpet pieces, right? Or let's go and do something that's a nice service project that helps us feel good and maybe helps some other people along the way. But all this stuff about suffering and death, ooh, Jesus, not the way we want to go right now. Especially when people seem to be tuned in and listening. And Jesus, get behind me, adversary. Of course, it's translated to us as Satan. But get behind me, adversary. This lawyer who's arguing the other side. Get behind me and listen. Listen to what I'm saying. He calls Peter out and calls him to pay attention. That the way of following the Messiah isn't the easy way. It is the way that is going to lead us into challenging places, that's going to have parts of us die or be changed, transformed, in the promise of a new life taking shape.